please on your video, because you have to take the lead role. So you,
Rajat is there as a leader.
yeah.
Rajat is there. Yes.
So with the permission of Lynn ma'am, good afternoon. Yeah. So Parvati ma'am, if you give signal, because women is always first, we are the follower of the goddess, after then God. So if you can give the signal, then Rajat can initiate the program.
Yes, we'll begin.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Rajat, dear, please, you may initiate the program, and please go ahead, because we have already more than 150 participants already on the screen. So please, you may go ahead. Wishing all the best. Wishing all the best. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. So I would now formally welcome one and all to the webinar on role of CSOs and youth in environmental protection and conservation, which is being organized by Vishwa Yuva Kendra and Oyster International, South India. So just to give you a brief introduction about both the organizations, first of all, to start with, Vishwa Yuva Kendra is one of the pioneering youth organizations which was started in the year 1961, and it's almost going to complete 60 years, and it has been working in youth development and in capacity building, and it has been working in Delhi, where it has its center, plus it is working in all the states and union territories of India, capacitating and working with the youth. So just to give you a little more introduction about Vishwa Yuva Kendra, the founding members of Vishwa Yuva Kendra were Mr. Moraji Desai, Srimati Indira Gandhi ji, Sri Navalej Tata, Sri Ravindra Verma, Sri Virenjay Shah, and Sri Ramakrishna Bajaj. And Pandit Nehru also played a very important part in initiating this organization, which is, as I said, working for the development, for the means of development. And we have our partner organization today, which is one of the most reputed organizations based in India, and especially in South India, which is the Oyster International South India chapter, which is a registered NGO with the government, and started in the year 1985, and which is working purely on environmental protection and training programs. To give you a small other brief about Oyster International, is they're also working closely on various projects and various activities, which is the Children's Forest Program, the Tree Planting Project, the Green Wave Project, the National Medicinal Plants Boards Project, the Grove Conservation Project, a herbal plantation, the mangrove plantation. They have many such projects going on environment all around South India. So we thank all the patrons, all the leaders of Oyster International South India, and also from Oyster International Japan as well. I think without their collaboration, I think we could not go ahead. I think one of the most important points that Vishwa Yuva Kendra is going forward is in doing programs in collaboration with various like-minded organizations in various parts of India, and we are joining hands with them and taking a very important topic, which is environmental protection and conservation. To give you a small background and brief why we are doing this program, as we all know that we are going through a very difficult time. I think the pandemic has taken a huge toll on this world, on the people as well. And there is the pre-corona environment, there is the post-corona. I think there is a difference. There is so much of less of pollution which can be seen, and there is a lot of scope for environmental conservation that we have. I think nature and earth gives us an opportunity, a new time to create a new beginning. So I think post-corona, I think we can always strive for a new beginning, because we can shape it into our hands, how we want to protect the environment, how do we want to conserve it. Because let me tell you, because it is not only for us, this environment, but it is for our future generations. I think there was a kid who once asked a father, Father, what's happening? Why all this pollution? Why can't I breathe? We could see children wearing masks, and that child asked, will there be a world that I can breathe in? So we have to think that, how strong a question did that child ask, that father or mother, can I have fresh air to breathe? Can I have trees around me? So we all need to work together. And in this program, we have various civil society organizations from various parts of India, be it north, south, east, northeast, central, south. We have youth from various parts of India who are joining us. And the main focus we want to keep it is towards the youth and the NGOs on what role they can play in environmental protection. Because when we say of environmental protection, it is a short-term goal. And when we are talking about conservation, it is a long-term goal and a medium goal. So we have to keep that in mind, how our short-term goals can help us achieve a long-term goal, which is like an earth which is clean, which is safe, which can sustain life for many more years to come. I think we cannot just think about ourselves. We need to think about our future generations, the animals, the birds. I think there is a lot that needs to be discussed. So I wouldn't take too much of time today, because we have four very, very eminent speakers. We welcome, I would like to welcome our four eminent speakers: Dr. N. Krishna Kumar, IFS. He's a retired Indian Forest Service officer. Dr. Levine K. Kahal, she's the Associate Director for Environmental Education and Awareness at the TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute. Dr. Khalil Chova, the Executive Director, State Council for Open and Lifelong Education, and Mr. Ganeshan Vishwanathan, Environmental Health, Safety and INMA Solutions. And they will be speaking on various such topics, which I think we will try and cover maximum what we can within this 2 hours that we have. I think the time is limited, but we will try and do as much of justice and as much of information which can be shared. So I thank all our speakers to spare their invaluable time for us. I also welcome Mr. Ajit Rai, the Program Officer, Vishwa Yuva Kendra, who will be moderating the first session. So we welcome you. And we also welcome Dr. Parvati Warrior, Vice President, Oyster International, South India. Ma'am, you are a warrior in real, and she will be moderating the second session. And we also have Mr. Arvind Babu, who's the Director and Secretary General Oyster International South India. He will be giving the vote of thanks. So now, without wasting much of time, I would now hand over the session to Mr. Ajit Rai. Sir, please take this session forward, sir. Thank you so much. And we also especially welcome Udayji also. I think Sir always is an active person who wants these collaborations to happen. I think without you, sir, I think these programs are not possible. So we thank you, sir. So Ajit, sir, you may take forward the session, sir.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you very much for the very, very nicely you have presented this whole how we will proceed. Respected speakers, representatives of OSCA, VYK, and all the learned participants. Good afternoon to all of you. As Rajat has elaborated what we are going to discuss and talk about in this 2 hours. So, as most of the scientists and environmentalists say, that some of the major causes of the environmental degradations are modern urbanization, industrialization, overpopulation growth, deforestation, etc. These are the main causes. In this first formal session, causes of environmental degradation, actions and expectations for conservation gains. This is the first session we are going to discuss about, and we have a very, we can say, brilliant, very learned resource person speaker in this session, and is Dr. N. Krishna Kumarji. With a brief introduction of his, I would request him to just elaborate on this session. He is the President of Oyster International, South India, former head of Forest Force, Tamil Nadu Forest Department, Director, Institute of Forest Genetics and Tree Breeding, Coimbatore. He has also served as country coordinator, have Forgan, strengthen forestry research in Southeast Asian countries. He is the man who prepared the first country report on the state of forest genetic resources for submission to FAO for inclusion in state of world's forest genetic resources. He has also been the chairman of Task Force on Forestry Crops, PPVFRA, Government of India. And since he is IFS, I guess he's the suitable person to discuss on this topic. And one thing I would like to, in his introduction, one thing I would like to, that he's very soft-spoken and very humble person. I request and welcome you, sir. And I hand over this session to you. Please take over from here. Sir, Krishna Kumar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ajit, Mr. Uday Shankar Singh ji, Mr. Arvind Babu, Mr. Khalil, Madam Livlin, Mr. Ganesan, Mr. Rajat Thomas, all participants, CSOs, NGOs, my dear youth. Today, two mighty giants, the VYK, Delhi-based Vishwa Yuva Kendra, and the Oyster International, with our headquarters in Japan, Tokyo, but we also operate from Delhi, the North Oyster, and the South from Calicut. Mr. Arvind Babu is here. So we decided to discuss on this important issue of environment and to see how best we rope in more of youth force into this very big task. Even I should admit frankly that I would not have got into the Forest Service if I had not got an exposure as a youth. Those days in the Tamil Nadu Forest Department, there used to be something called the Forest Youth Club. It was a very nice thing. We had to write a competitive exam then. And then once you are enrolled, then the youth, around 10 of them are selected, 15 of them. They are taken around all the sanctuaries and national parks, and you get an exposure. There you get to see forests and wildlife and the officers handling. Probably that was a motivation. Now, I don't miss to tell this because youth, generally, if exposed to right things at the right time, probably will become strong leaders of tomorrow. And that is what these two great the national international organizations are offering you today. Can I have the screen share, please? I'll start off straight away. Mr. Rajat?
Yeah, it is being done.
Thank you. So, friends, let me also tell you today, we are in a cocktail of societal problems and cocktail of environmental problems. There are so many issues confronting us every day. We know that, of course, technology has taken us to great heights. AI, we are proud of, and all that is very fine. But sometimes we feel that when all these things is happening, we also require development without destruction. We need protection of the environment, the crucial, the fragile systems with production. So protection with production, development without destruction should be the mantra governing future India. And this is this is here where the youth have a very big role to play. And my point of discussion today will only be around environmental degradation. What is the influence of forests to prevent these degradation? But how the forests, which are supposed to support environment, is itself in trouble? What are the strategies to prevent this thing? What can CSOs do and youth do in this? What is it that an organization like Oyster is doing to create awareness? And then discuss the new trajectory that is required for conservation gains. This is really important because in today's environment, as rightly said, this pandemic has caused problems for everybody. The two important sectors that are really worried about this pandemic, of course, everybody is worried. It has touched every sector. But somebody who's really worried appears to be the economists, because our they say world over economy is slipping, slowing down, and it is dropping down, unemployment, etc. On the other end, the people who are really concerned is the ecologist. We know pre-COVID, the way we went about with our ecosystems, our biodiversity, the forests, the natural resources, the air, water, and the amount of pollution that we caused, etc. Now, post-pandemic, during pandemic, everything looks good, but what is going to really happen post-pandemic is another serious issue. So this is something that we need to really think about and see how best the youth can be brought in to do this very big task. Of course, the government is doing its part. We have another very big task of Sustainable Development Goal achievement by 2030, the Agenda Sustainable Development Goals. And that again is another big thing for us to handle. So how are we going to handle all this thing in the days to come becomes the point of my discussion today. Is my PPT going to get delayed?
So, it's just been shared. Yeah, if you may just see it on the screen.
I'll just say next and then you can go. So today, this is just quickly to tell you that the Earth, the next one, please. Next. Yeah, hold on to that the previous one. No, please go to the second one. Just hold this for a minute. So look at it, if Earth is 4.6 billion years old, scaling it to 46 years, human beings is just 4 years old, industrial revolution is 1 minute ago, and the time we have destroyed more than 50% of the world's forests. This is not sustainable. Today, we talk more about sustainable forest management. Next, please. The next one. Yes. Now, if you take today's paper, everywhere people talk about the environmental issues that we have. It is climate change, it is global warming, improper waste disposal, and people talk about pollution, urban sprawls, ozone layer depletion, acid rains, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, determination of the ecological systems, the nuclear waste, the plastic waste, the household waste, industrial waste, and things like this. This is what I've listed, and this could be much more. So you take any newspapers today, these are the things that are really confronting us every day, day in and day out. And people are really worried as to what is happening. This is a global scenario, but in a country with very high population, I think this is a very serious issue. Now, climate change definitely is a very serious issue, and you're just seeing all the threats that are going around, the forest fires, the droughts that are happening. Global warming itself is a very serious issue. If the temperature can go up even 1 degree, a rise in temperature can cause enough problem for us. They say presently our temperature with 1 degree rise, the Calcutta, Chennai, and other port towns will get washed off, and that's the sort of threat that is looming large. Improper waste disposal, maybe medical waste, industrial waste, household waste. I think we have people to talk about it. Pollution, the air pollution, the water pollution, all sort of pollution. To talk about urban sprawls. I remember 35 years before when I joined the forest department, when we went to the Nilgiris. The Nilgiris was such a pristine place. The Kodaikanal in Tamil Nadu was such a pristine place. The so-called Missouri, where we all went for our studies, was such a nice place, Dehradun. But today, it's not that, because the population has increased everywhere. There is demand-supply problems, and then this filth and dirt is spreading over. Ozone layer depletion is again causing a lot of issues, acid rains. Deforestation does happen here and there, and because of mining and other issues, loss of biodiversity. I don't need to tell you the way we are losing our species. Loss because the IPBES, Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity, has already warned us that we are losing almost 10% of the insects, and we are also, in the next few years, we are going to lose at least 1 million species. If 8 million species or so has been recorded, if 1 million species is in the threshold of extinction, that is what they say about biodiversity. Overpopulation with 130 crores and 50% almost being youth, then their supply and their aspirations also have to be met. Then the nuclear waste and plastics and so on. Landfill and soil pollution is also very high. Next, please. And in this scenario, if I'm only going to take one issue called climate change, just look at the sort of pressure that we're going to have. Friends, you know that environment, as we say, is the area that we all operate around. Our influence on the surrounding area, and the surrounding area's influence on us, that's precisely environment. And what is degradation? Degradation is nothing but the deterioration and also the depletion of the resources. That is precisely what is called as deterioration. And conservation, the third word in the topic is how do we really protect and conserve the natural resources so that it is just not we who use it. How do we really judiciously use so that the future generation also can take, and that becomes conservation. So these are the three key words of my topic. So one threat called climate, if you take, so such a lot of studies going on in India on climate as to what is really happening within the forest, outside the forest, in urban scenarios, in all these areas where climate threat is looming large. Now, for example, ecosystems, when you take the land and the ocean, all are under threat. The previous slide, please. All are under threat because the ecosystems are of three types. You should know that there are natural ecosystems and artificial ecosystems. There are so-called lentic, which are static ecosystems like ponds and pools, and the low-tech ecosystems, the flowing rivers, etc. Now, there are also ecosystems what are called as the natural ecosystem, the artificial ecosystem. Then there is something what is called as the impacted ecosystem, which is slightly modified. And then the cultural ecosystem, which is totally modified, like the agricultural ecosystems or the industrial ecosystems, etc. Now, you talk of the atmosphere, the lithosphere, the geosphere, whatever it is, everywhere there is an impact on climate change, and as a result of which the lands and the oceans are all under threat. We know what is really happening today. The fish catches are coming down in spite of the fact that lean periods are there declared for against fish catching. But still, people are avaricious. Sometimes they go because it's a question of livelihood. And but at the same time, what fish catches we have had earlier is not there. They say that in many places, more than 40 locations within the ocean, the scenarios have changed within the ocean. Lands, I need not tell you the type of degradation that's happening. Displacement of vast number of people is definitely to happen because of if sea level rises, as I told you earlier. Drought and inundation, I need not tell you, there is so much a problem. Forest diebacks. In many places, we really do not know how the forests are dying back, because in many places, they may look green from outside, but inside there are definitely a lot of problems. The forest fires, the tropical storms, floods, landslides, vector-borne diseases. Look at the pandemic that we're facing right away. It's all because of disruptions in biodiversity and ecosystems. All this is climate change. And ecology, as I told you, the mountain ecosystems have all changed so much. The stability of mangroves, about which somebody is going to talk, the coral reefs are at risk because many of the natural coral weeds are decreasing, and then the so-called exotic weeds are taking over. Major cities are going to face problem, displacement of wetlands. Wetlands may all get clogged, erosion, salinization, again, which are all serious threats. And then the yield of agriculture crops, the agrobiodiversity, the agriculture production, wheat, maize, are all likely to come and down. And then the migration of individuals for livelihood security. Right away, the pandemic has made people to walk left and right all over the nation. And then Himalayan glaciers are fast melting, and as a result of which rivers, I have seen closely in Kaveri and many other places the type of impact that these rivers are facing. But all these are because of two factors. The next slide, please, quickly. The next slide. Yeah, the causes of environmental degradation, friends, are anthropogenic. Anthropogenic definitely is because of the so-called anthropogenic activities, anthropocentric activities, which are urbanization, industrialization, overpopulation, poverty, deforestation, and then the wrong use of technology, pesticides, wildfires, etc. While the natural factors are the so-called tsunamis, landslides, earthquakes, etc. And both these are competing today, and as a result of which environmental degradation is a tremendous thing that we are facing. Next, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. So in the light of this, I should also tell you that the forests do influence the environment. See, if you want a really good environment, we already have 24% of a land area under forest, and we are aiming at 33% of a land area to be brought under forest. And this is possible if all of us collectively start working, just not within the forest alone, but outside the forest, in farmlands, in community lands, in school lands, in wastelands, everywhere. We should look for opportunities to plant them with trees and cover them with trees. And tropical forests cover 7% of the area. They hold 50% of the biodiversity. The air, we have seen wherever there are good forests, urban forests, small collections of trees, groves, the sacred groves, then the temperature there is definitely 2 to 3 degrees lesser. Then there are local precipitations because of good influence of the forest, influence on the soil water. We know wherever there are trees, they are able to retain water, regulate water. That is why if you go to the Nilgiris, you will find that all the so-called hutments are located below a forest, because the forest regulates and sends the water. It controls erosion. It is also important for wildlife shelter, because where there are forests, where the biodiversity is rich, then probably the wildlife is safe. Today, man-wildlife or human-wildlife conflict is such a serious issue. Wildlife is moving out of the forest on a, like anything, the elephant or the sambar, the deer, all the animals are coming out. And then there is also the people's concern about moving the elephant back into the forest. And then it also controls pollution to a great way. Biodiversity itself is regulated, maintains ecological balance, carbon sink. And as I said, 1 hectare of tree can remove 32.5 tons of carbon dust and gases from the surrounding. Next, please. So ecosystem functions, this is probably to tell you how important India is. India is always a rich repository of germplasms, the Western Ghats, the Eastern Ghats, the Himalayas, but all these forests hold what are called as ecosystems. The ecosystems have very important functions, what are called as the provisioning functions, the regulating functions, the cultural functions, and the supporting. Regulatory functions, I need not tell you, young friends, it is protecting the cosmic influence or regulating the climate, preventing soil erosion, protecting the soil, and recycling all the water cycle, the cycles that we talk of, the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, all these are regulated by forests. The production functions, the oxygen, the drinking water, whatever all your needs, we call it as the food, fiber, clothing, all that is given by the production. So this sort of thing, it becomes very important. The medicinal plant resources, 60,000 crores is our annual business, and we are trying to touch a few trillion through medicinal plant exports and import. That again, is livelihood security for tribals and a lot of fringe villages. And again, the genetic resources. Now I tell you, biodiversity is very important for 3 reasons. The genetic resources that they hold, then the species that India holds, the type of species that we hold, both plant and fauna and flora, is tremendous. Every country looks at India with awe because of our biodiversity. The genetic resources, particularly the genes that are held in individuals, the genetic variations between 2 species, within the species, all this becomes very important, because we just do not know what these genetic resources are going to yield. But before understanding them, we are also losing them. And then the so-called carrier functions, because they provide supporting services also, information, the cultural, the aesthetics, tourism, ecotourism, and tourism industry itself is a very big thing, and scientific learning, research, these are the potential of the ecosystem functions, and therefore ecosystems have to be conserved. Next, please. And then thus comes the forest, significance of forest. Floral, well, quickly to tell you, now look, this is the scenario in the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands, where mangroves and the evergreen forest, and this is the type of forest that we need. But though today those islands are really well protected, but in many forests, they may look green, but then inside we have a very big problem of forest invasives. Many species that have come from outside have gone in and really smothered the ground floor and taken away the natural vegetation. This is something that we should get worried about. We do not have enough taxonomists and botanists in the country. We really need students to just not, they need not be botanists and zoologists, but from any sphere, we need youth to understand the forest dynamics. And that is why I feel that the future lies in citizens' science, where probably the question of adaptive management, where the citizens themselves, the youth, the CSOs, will be able to monitor forests, look into changes in the forest, discuss with the scientists, and with their own amateurial science knowledge, they can together work and see how best the forestry science can be built in the country. So the next, please. Next slide. Yeah. Now look at this ecosystem, the Western Ghats. Last week, Oyster had a very interesting meeting. A very senior politician, a present MP, was with us. Dr. Babusan had invited him, and we were asking one question to him: what do you think is the sustainable future of Kerala? And his one-word reply was, if the Western Ghats are protected, Kerala is protected. We asked him why. He said, if the Western Ghats are protected, the ecosystem is protected, the forest types are protected, the livelihood security is given, watersheds are there, then air is there, and that is the thing. Because Kerala, which is upland, the middle land, and the lowland, for all this to survive, what we need is the safety of the wetland, of the uplands. And if there is good uplands, then probably all the ecosystems are taken care of. That is the sort of understanding today. The political masters also do know that forests have to be protected. And so I would find that the environment is good now to see that we also join hands with the government to see that all their good programs are taken care of. See, government on their own has many initiatives to protect and conserve forests. In fact, we have all the acts. I would say that this country has the Best Act, the Air Act, the Water Act, the Forest Conservation Act, the Forest Act 1927, the Wildlife Protection Act, the Biodiversity Act, and the BPBFR Act. So there are acts, innumerable acts, and the Environment Protection Act 1986. All these acts, I think the youth should understand at least the bare idea of what these acts are and what are the provisions, so that they really know why these acts have come into being. But more than acts, I think what is really required is people to monitor and watch these watersheds and watch these ecosystems. Next, please. The next one. So look at this. This is again another ecosystem, what called the shola and the grasslands in the Nilgiris and the Western Ghats. They have plenty. The Western Ghats, which starts right from Bombay to Kanyakumari, Mumbai to Kanyakumari. Just look at the small patches of forest in between the crevices. They are called the shola, the dwarf forest. They hold so much of life within. And then the grassland. The grasslands are sponges. They absorb the water, and then the water is percolating down into the shola grassland, and then it comes down and goes into the hamlets for drinking water and for irrigation purposes. And then if these mountain resources, ecosystems are not protected, then people in the plains really suffer. See, I've been to the United States and many places there. They always say that the health of a nation, it depends on the wealth of the mountains. If the mountains are secure and safe, then your plains are very good, because here it is, if there is soil erosion here, recently in the Munnar area, there was soil wash, and then what happened? People got washed out, property gets washed out, and then there is so much of calamity, there is so much of social problems and social unrest, societal calamities. All this can be prevented if we have pristine ecosystems like this, and this is what we should all be trying to understand. And this is where we in OISCA also try to take youth to such places to see that they understand such ecosystems. Next, please. Quickly. Now, this is a quick glance at the biodiversity, because my time is running out quickly. Biodiversity, I think India is very, very rich in biodiversity. We have 8% of the fauna flora. We have 16% of the population, 18% of the cattle grazing in our area, in 2% of the land. But look at the type of biodiversity we have. And today, still I'm telling you, 350 mammals, 1,224 birds, reptiles, amphibians. The greatest thing about us is the endemics, the unique flora that we only have, and the fauna that we have, that only we hold. And insects, I tell you, we have 57,000 insects. It can even go beyond to 1 lakh and more. And the plant diversity is 46,000. So these are all, it becomes very important for economic use. That is what is called as forest genetic resources, because they have a lot of economic use, ecological use, societal values, scientific values. So these biodiversity needs to be protected and conserved in all way possible. And that is a very big task before all of us. Next, please. The next one. Yeah, look at the forest types that we hold within the forest. We may all look at first. See, the problem is that we go as tourists to a forest. We just come and look and say everything is fine. We saw the tiger, or we didn't see the tiger. We saw the lion, or we didn't see. But then there's so much of life inside the forest. We have the wet evergreen forest, the semi-evergreen forest. Every forest, within this, there are subtypes of forest. Now, under the wet evergreen, there are again subtypes. All these forests will yield so much of resources and safety and security for the people. That is how these forests become important. And all our forest types need to be understood, protected. It is happening because of good acts and also support received from people, good NGOs, good people support. And this needs to continue, because in the days to come, we really do not know what is going to happen if our population pressure increases, because we find that the resources are going to be really tampered upon. Next, please. Quickly, I'll run through. Yes, causes of degradation, as I told you, we have a lot of people dependent on forests. We have 300 million people dependent on goods and services. See, because we need good ecosystems. Good ecosystems have their own characteristics, because they can give what is called as goods and services, the water, the air, the materials that they can give in terms of medicine, food, etc. And if people don't get this, then they start going into the forest to collect all these things. And naturally, the food, we are, 8 or 9 wild crops are giving all the food that we have today. The rice, the barley, the wheat, all their progeny, their predecessors happen to be their original crop are from the forest. So there is still so much to be understood about the forest, by which time the forests are degrading. More than 40% of the poor are dependent on forests. Conversion to agriculture, infrastructure. Today they say that agriculture itself is a very serious thing. So that the best thing that can happen is a very technology-based, sophisticated agriculture, which will have less intensity of resources so that we're able to protect forests. That is what we're looking at. And then forest products itself, as I told, the NTFP, non-timber forest products, there are more than 100 non-timber forest products like honey and gooseberry and so many things within the forest. And all these needs to be protected. We need to have what is called as justified extraction. Next, please. Yeah, and I need not go into the other threats, roads, grazing. Even today, people would like to touch every corner of the area, and even small hamlets need connectivity. And then roads are a very big threat. Grazing, as I said, 18% of the cattle, air pollution, land pollution, soil erosion, and all the other pressures that forests are able to take. And many of our forests are also low in productivity. When I said the forest should be able to give the best of its produce and goods to us, the water, the air, and the water resources. So these things should not suffer. And that is what we should ensure. We should try to control the anthropogenic pressures. And there are at least 1.7 lakh villages located around the forest, and they also need their livelihood security. But at the same time, judicious use has to be looked into. Hunting, poaching, plantation, mining, fuel, tourism, these things keep continuing. Next, please. Yeah. And so quickly, next please, look at the plantation. So what happens when you have plantations like this? Connectivity, I do agree that we do require plantation, but at the same time, what is really required is a sustainable plantation management so that connectivity between two forests are not lost, and we cannot have extensive stretches of plantation, again, which is dangerous. Next please. So this is where we are trying to look for different options. Mining is still continuing to be a very serious threat because the local biodiversity is lost. Next please. Next. And then competitive grazing within the forest. So grazing itself can cause a lot of diseases like the foot and mouth disease. See, zoonotic disease that we talk of, 90 odd diseases from animals to human being to animals. And so all this forest ecosystem is under threat because of if you do not have regulated grazing, and then competing with also the wildlife like the blackbuck and the so-called grazing cattle here. Next, please. Urbanization, I need not tell you, I've already talked about it. It's a very serious threat. Next. Next, please. And therefore, the remedies that we're looking for is sustainable forest management. A little technical, we are trying to see what is sustainability. Today, there are two problems: conservation versus what is called as conservation versus development. This fight is going on. The buzzword now is sustainable management. How do we really sustain it in such a way so that we really don't take the natural capital, we completely defile the natural capital and spoil it? And that's sort of a management which looks into posterity. Gandhiji's words of roughness, what is called as enoughness. Gandhiji often said that we have enough for our need, but not for our greed. That is what is precisely sustainable management. Stakeholder participation, that is why this workshop today, to see that all of you are part of it. We have management plans to manage our ecosystems, reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation. These are new things that we're looking at, ways to see how deforestation and degradation can be contained, and to see the carbon stock in the forest is built up and increase in the area under management practice. We need protected areas, which are called sanctuaries and national parks. We need to really have more of them if possible. Valuation of the forest. We really do not know what is it the forest can give you in terms of money value. We can always talk about other things, but forests also need to be valued in terms of its contribution to air, water, and other resources. Increase of area and plantation also, so that they become buffer areas. We need good policies. We need good governance. Participatory forest management, as I said, which we have been talking for the last 2 decades, and that has to strengthen research, education, extension, which is very important because today the expenditure into forestry is really very, very less. We need to see that more money is pumped into forest areas so that more youngsters come and join. Awareness and monitoring, which is done by people like us along with the government. Next, please. All right, again, sustainable development goals. This we all know, we have a very huge responsibility. VUIK often talks about it, we talk about it, and particularly when it comes to environment, sustainable development goal 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. These are fantastic goals. If these goals are achieved by 2030, a lot of the problems which I said can be taken care of. Because look at 11, look at 13, the climate change, and look at 14, life below water and life above water, life on land. This is what I've been talking of. Life below water is also a very big thing. Ocean biodiversity, we have roughly no idea as to what are all the things. The other day I heard recently that number of different types of sharks that we have in our ocean. The benthic fauna, the upper area fauna, the planktons, the zooplanktons, the phytoplankton. There is so much. But what is happening? Knowledge is available. but it is all lying here and there. We need to connect this knowledge so that everybody gets to know what is really happening and trying to take people along for this. I'm not going into sustainable development in a big way, but this is a thing that is to be talked through a separate webinar. Maybe Mr. Uday Shankar Singh will think about it on 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Next, please. And okay, the role of CSOs and youth, as I said, youth, we believe, are innovative, creative. They have a lot of ideas. I know we have youths like Prajit and their own youth in Kerala. Then look at our own young friend Rajit here. So these are all the people on which India looks forward to then pursue positive policies, because you're all very positive people. You're able to inspire community. You're able to raise awareness, go and work at local levels. Even during pandemics, the youth are jumping to go and work in the forest and other areas, support eco-friendly practices. And youth we consider as vital forces along with CSOs. CSOs definitely have a very big role in consultation, involvement, empowerment, and sustainable forest management. So there are a number of ways through which these are being done. Next, please. And students in conservation, I find this is something very important. May it be school student from 6th standard or even below that, they should have a practical understanding of the forest and then try to develop certain skills. Today, bird watching, butterfly watching, dragonfly watching, reptile watching, mammal watching, all this has become very important through WhatsApp, etc. People are so well linked and connected. Every day there is a webinar happening. And these are very good things where youngsters join, and this force should multiply in the country. So act as volunteers, because instead of just sitting idly, it is youth who are coming forward to do this. When we have the annual census in the forest, they are the first ones to come and help the forest department and things like that. Students in conservation curriculum itself. See, I always say that it is not necessary in botany and zoology. You may be an advocate, you may be a lawyer or a doctor or any professional, an engineer. Today's Engineers Day. But then in your heart, you need to have a small amount of portion allocated for nature and conservation. So also CSOs and NGOs. You may be NGO handling policy issues or governance issue or anything, but then every NGO has a mandate to also protect and conserve natural resources. And see, NCC, NSS, Green Corps are there today, and we have our own OISCA. I'll come to it. And then students are involved in a lot of species recovery program. I need to talk about species recovery program, because earlier we were talking about single species conservation. Today we talk of multi-species conservation, habitat conservation, where we are looking at very serious thing. Let me tell you, friends, in the business as usual scenario, if we leave things as it is, biodiversity of India by 2015 is totally going to go. Completely it will go. Unless and otherwise we do corrective measures and see that biodiversity is important for human health, is important for the welfare of human beings, this thing should come. And some corrective actions right away. Only then probably we can really bring back biodiversity, ensure that areas are, that is why we strongly believe in in-situ conservation and ex-situ conservation through zoos, botanical gardens, etc., and in-situ conservation through plethora of our national parks and sanctuaries. This becomes important. And research work. Next, please. Next. The role of OISCA itself in our own organization in South, we are trying, our flagship program is Children's Forestry Program, the Love Green Clubs, where we try to inculcate values of forests and trees in the schools, the social awareness program and training program called the SALT, through which we try to again inculcate values on environment and forests, medicinal plant gardens in all the school. We have 1,770 schools where we have medicinal plant gardens and children's forestry program. We are into the thick of mangrove conservation, sacred grove conservation, restoration of degraded forests, water conservation programs, nature study camps, fruit gardens, urban planting. All these are OISCA's program, both in the north and south. But in South India, we are taking it up in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Kerala. Excellent work is happening, and Tamil Nadu also. So these are the good things that are happening through OISCA. So like this, every NGO comes together. They have to partnership themselves like what we have done today. And then probably there'll be collective action and bigger visibility that can happen to environment and conservation. These are the ways that conservation can gain in this country. Next, please. Yeah, just look at it. We need to bring students, and then we need to have student nursery in the schools. Next, please. These are all the OISCA's activities in Calicut and other areas where the children are totally involved in afforestation and eco-restoration programs. Next, please. Next. And they see, look at it, that we have gone into degraded areas. The picture above, the picture below is after 2-3 years, the way students have gone about and done planting. You'll have to go and see this place in Nagarkol to see the sort of amelioration that has taken place, the environmental amelioration that has happened. Next, please. And next one. Yeah, all these again are the water table improvement through students program by having small check dams, mini ponds, etc., by water harvesting structures. These are the things that we should introduce these concepts to the youngsters and see for themselves how it happens. And the children's forestry program, as I was telling you, after 7 years, the type of trees that they grow, though it's a monoculture, but yet the happiness that happens when juniors plant and when they come back to the school under some positions, then they are happy to see this is what really the school look like and what it looks now. Next, please. All these such wonderful things are happening. And the mangrove restoration program, where the volunteers, the youth, the students have involved themselves in Kannur. And this again, a good restoration that has happened. Next, please. Next. Yeah, the SALT program, as I tell you, is a leadership program where we're introducing youth to environment and other social values, environmental values, cultural values, etc. Next, please. Including the spiritual values. Next. The women, again, are a very potential force, and their strength, Parvati Varir madam is here. We know the type of reformation that she has brought about in her own district. So these are people who can do a lot of structural changes, ecological changes, social and societal changes. If they are all properly, if they understand the dynamics of ecosystem, I'm very sure it is only through the youth and the women and CSOs, along with government, such good things can happen. That is how today, if anybody looks at India with pride, it is only because I think our natural resources that we have. Any country would say, look at India's natural resource. When we all went abroad, the thing that we're proud of, our people and our resources, our natural resources. Next, please. So seek practical ways to connect with soils, my young soldiers, my youth who are listening to us today. Connect yourself with soils, trees, animals, landscapes, energy systems, water on which life depends. Like earthworms, we too are organisms of the soil. We too need grounding. I have made it very, very simple so that everybody really takes home the message. My idea was to connect this thought of ecology, environment, conservation, so that students do get connected to it wherever, whichever part of the country you are, in wherever positions you go, you need to have this umbilical connection with nature. This is the message that I needed to convey to you, because you are the custodians, the guardians, the protectors. We need river conservationists, we need ecosystem managers, we need urban foresters, we need animal lovers. All this we see in the youth, and it is through you that a true transformation of India can take place. Jai Hind. Thank you. The next one, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for, since we have a shortage of time, we will just quickly move to our second session. And since you have covered all this impact and the ecosystem functions, also SDG, role of youth and role of CSOs. And in your speech, you yourself said that once Gandhiji said that we have enough for our need, but not for our greed. So with this, we will move for our next session. And the next session is awareness creation initiative and further scope for environmental protection and conservation programs. And we have with us Dr. Llewellyn K. Kahlonji. With a brief introduction, I would request her. She is Associate Director, Environmental Education and Awareness, TERI. I'm sure most of us have heard about TERI. Dr. Llewellyn works closely with CBSE, NCERT, and various education boards promoting TERI's environmental education initiative. She is a member of EST ExpertNet, which is a leading network of environment educators based in India, Germany, Mexico, and South Africa. She has led several projects and applied innovative strategies to examine issues like energy conservation, waste education, waste management, and climate change education. Without wasting any time, I request Llewellyn ji to take over from here. Llewellyn ji, please. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. A very good afternoon to all the eminent speakers and people in the panel who are a part of the program. Taking forward from what Krishna sir has just mentioned about the role of botany, zoology, and how there's a need for children and students to be connected with nature, I'll take forward the discussion from there. One point that I would like to mention here very specifically is that though we were privileged enough to have grounding in life sciences, like I'm a botanist. Similarly, we had people with strong taxonomy backgrounds, people from zoology and all. Right now, we are in the age of interdisciplinary. So when we look at an interdisciplinary approach, it becomes very essential and also a little difficult for us to sensitize our youth to the need of ecology and core conservation programs. So taking this as a cue and moving forward, what we do at Terry is we try to create pockets and issues and projects where students from various disciplines, academics can join hands and come up with conservation projects. So I will be speaking about it, and also I have a brief presentation which I can share with you now.
Yeah, it's just being shared. It's just being shared.
Okay, it is being shared. Thank you. Right. Thank you so much. This is just an introduction, and these are my coordinates. You can definitely, there are around 200 plus students. You can get in touch with Terry and with us through this email ID and through the organizers, Oyster and the Vishwa Yuva Kendra. Next slide, please. Okay. See, we are speaking about conservation, we are talking about forest, we are talking of ecology, we're talking of protecting our environment. And what are the issues that majority of our youth encounters? We have now a very large population of youth in India, and actually India, we say it's a demographic dividend, but most of these youth are staying in the cities. And when they stay in the cities, I have listed a few common issues that they encounter. They encounter the issue of water conservation, plastics, saying no to plastics, reducing their buying capacity and reducing the waste, and looking at various modes of travel which are convenient to them, which are convenient to their pocket and also to the environment. Why did I write all this here? The purpose of writing here is that we are talking about all these issues because youth encounter these issues. But what is the connection with ecology and environment? Here is where our interdisciplinary approach will make a lot of change in the attitude of the youth. So we're talking of water conservation. We cannot bring each child to a river basin. And conversely, we cannot bring in water, natural water systems into the city. But we can definitely train a child, train a student, train a youth of connecting with where does the water that you use come from. So when you open a tap, you get water, but that water is from originally a original source of water. So when we take them down the journey, we take them along the journey of any resource that they come across in a city, that is when they will start thinking of conservation, they will start thinking of ecology, they will learn the connections and connectivity that nature has with their life. So this, similarly, when we talk of plastics, we can link it to growing hazard of plastics in the environment, how nature walks, nature studies are essential because those are initiatives in wilderness. When you enter a forest, when you take note of things around you, you naturally do not write down about the plastics or man-made waste. But when you are in a city and you want to think about forest, what is the connection? The first step is taking a positive change. The positive change is that please keep all your waste keep all your man-made things to cities and do not take them forward when you go to the forest and natural areas. So these, and also when I say think, I also say mindset. Buying less, recycling of waste, looking at economical and eco-friendly modes of travel. These are issues that the youth should be trained towards, because we are finally encountering a youth who has witnessed wildlife only through artificial mode. Very few of them would have even logged on to National Geographic Channel, seen the world of the blue, gone through David Attenborough's series. For them, wildlife is what they see through a camera. What they see around them is what nature is, what they understand. So establishing this linkages is very essential, and that is why we say that we have to look at an interdisciplinary approach. How does a management student gets enthused to conserve wildlife? How many of management students finally clear IFS examination, or they move forward into forest related courses? So these are the things that we as curriculum developers, program managers, we need to be conscious about, because at the end of it, we cannot afford to leave even a single student away from the conservation story. And when we are talking, next slide, of conservation story, we have to connect it to their present and to their immediate surrounding. Next slide, please. Okay, here we'll take a pause. Students who come from a life sciences background would have heard about James Lovelock and the Gaia hypothesis. What is Gaia hypothesis? What does it talk about? It talks about keeps the planet Earth as a goddess, and it says that this goddess, this planet Earth, has living organisms and inorganic surroundings which are continuously interacting with each other. And when this interaction is happening, the Earth is forming a complex system where it is self-regulating itself. So what happens in this process of self-regulation? Though they are man-made, they are catalyzed by human actions, but we see the wildfires, we see the cyclones, we see even the pandemic that we witness now. Why are these extreme situations happening? This is an effort on part of the earth to self-regulate. This is not a act of getting back on humans. It is an act of self-defense, a self-regulation, wherein, keeping in mind the carrying capacity of the system, a lot of changes happen. And if we are conscious about this hypothesis and this property of the planet Earth to self-regulate, we will understand the different catastrophic events that are occurring all around us and more in the current century. It is a process of self-healing. It is a natural process wherein the earth is trying to balance between the resources it has and the people it has to sustain. That is its carrying capacity. Next slide, please. Okay. So, what has happened? What have we seen till date? We have seen so many we have seen two world wars. Then we have seen Cold War, nuclear war. So these are all extreme events that have happened. But what happened at the end of it? Did man vanish from the planet? No, we have lived on. Changes, extreme changes did happen, and these changes were in terms of increase in the deaths, in crash. If we look at the economic impacts, crash in GDP numbers, then if we look at the health system, rise in new illnesses and disease, and when we look at a social angle, a rise in loneliness and isolation. So the last part, loneliness and isolation, I feel is very important when we want to create a good system, we want to hand over a good system to our youth. So are we concerned about these socio, health, economic impacts that all these extreme events have had on. Man will live on, but how healthy a human race would be in future is what we need to be conscious about. And that is where the role of the NGOs, the role of the government bodies, roles of CSOs come into picture, because we need to create a picture for the youth, for them to be happy about. And when we hand over this earth to them, they should be ready to protect it in the coming times. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned about loneliness. So why I mentioned specially about loneliness is I wanted to introduce a term to you called eco anxiety. So what are we witnessing these days? You open up the newspaper, we have so many reports of all these things that are written up on the slide. The catastrophes, cataclysmic issues, apocalypse. So all these negative words come to our eyes. So what happens? It causes a concern, and this concern is uh, uh, more prevalent in our youth, in our young citizenry, because they are at a very, very sensitive age group. So they see no hope, they see no future in the future. And that is when they get into their shells and cocoons of eco anxiety. What do they experience? They experience fear, they grieve about the earth and what will happen to them in future. So once this eco anxiety sets in, the repair mechanism, the repairing comes to a standstill. So we have to become a shield. We seniors have to become a wall between the youth and all these eco-anxious terminology and thoughts that come to their mind. Because we want to hand over to the youth, while we want to hand over to them a lot of positive environment, we also want to hand over to them a very healthy and robust society wherein they can be happy. Next slide. Okay, so what is the role of youth in environment protection and conservation? I feel for youth, it is very important that they have to be educated, but education should lead to some leadership roles. These leadership roles are very well put up into the green clubs that are formed, the eco clubs, nature clubs, where we have monitors, we have people, we have students who monitor students, because this peer-to-peer learning will definitely make an impact. Youth doesn't want us to talk to them, they would rather listen to a friend. So we need to create very clear leadership role amongst youth. We have to educate them, we have to create courses, opportunities wherein they understand the sustainable practices and what is happening in the conservation field. So that will set in through proper education. Then when we have to develop competencies amongst the youth to be able to analyze and integrate sustainability in their thought and practice. This will come with an interdisciplinary approach, because to every youth his or her career is very important, and any inroad into conservation, into protection, should also see a build-up of his or her portfolio. So that is why competencies should be built in within their academics that they are pursuing. And of course, they have the power, they are so well versed with the technology. So that is a positive that we can learn from them and promote pro conservation messages through the power of technology. At the end of it, once the sustainable practices are promoted, it has to lead to lifestyle changes. So we are demanding so much from the youth. So what is our role? What can we give in return? Next slide is what I would like to stress upon here. Next slide, please. Can you please put up the next slide? Okay, so I am giving you some examples of projects that we did in TERI. All these projects, they were developed, they were conceptualized through an interdisciplinary approach. I will not go through each and every example, but the presentation can be shared with you. So if we take the case of Solar Chirag. So Solar Chirag was an initiative wherein we brought, each project had an interdisciplinary team. So the students were not from the same college or university, they were from different colleges and universities, and they were from different disciplines. So they formed their own groups and they came up with a project proposal which was supported by resources, financial and non-financial, for implementation. They took care that all the three aspects of sustainability, that is the economic, social and environment dimension, are taken care of in their project design. At the end of it, the products that they designed, like here, they trained women, they brought in a gender perspective to make solar lamps. So there was a technical training given to them. They had these master training workshops, and at the end of it, they made handmade, reasonably priced solar products, and which were then introduced into the urban markets through the corporates. So this linkage was very essential. So at the end of it, when we are talking to college students, they want to see what is the final product. There's a big difference of talking to children in the schools where they have a very structured learning mechanism, and to those in the colleges. When we are talking to students in the colleges, we see that the chain is complete from production to the market linkage. So this was an example that I wanted to share, and it was all done by college students. Take anyone, take the Water Crusader. This was supported and it was led by a student in Chennai. He has founded this Environment Foundation India, and he's a Rolex fellow. He initiated the environment journey through a British Council TERI initiative called the International Climate Champions. So similarly, like when we work with students, we see to it that they get some good internship opportunities, they get a good exposure, they are able to formulate concepts, projects, and from ideation to implementation, they are able to complete this chain. Next slide, please. So it has already been mentioned that we are in a COVID-19 phase, and the post COVID-19 is going to be very different from what it is now. It is true, because even the pressure on our youth is going to be there. With the cancellation of examinations, so many things being changed, they will be equally concerned about their career pathways. So over there, how do we divert their attention to core issues of environment sustainability, is wherein we'll have to create a very smart internship opportunities, so that after, they should be involved in an environment conservation project, and after they complete their academics, they get an exposure of working with NGOs, corporates and civil society, wherein they are able to practice what they have learned. So this is what we need to do. Otherwise, again, we will be creating another road of eco-anxious citizens. So that is something that we should be very careful about. And all the students who are a part of this particular talk, you can connect with us later. We can show you different ways in which we all can work together. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a Facebook page. Please take note. And like the Facebook page, you will be involved in these activities related to youth at TERI. Currently, we are doing two initiatives very actively. One is a Youth Climate Conclave, which is a competition board of an program, which is being run with the European Union, MOEFCC, and GIZ. And the second program, just recently launched yesterday, is with the Central Zoo Authority. The project with Central Zoo Authority is with the younger segment, that is the school children, but YCC is with college students, and most of you there in the webinar today are from colleges. Here you will see how an issue of climate change is linked to a skill that you are well versed with. At the end of it, education is important. We need to sensitize you about different issues, but you also have skill sets which need to be projected at higher platforms. So making use of a skill that you have, be it a blog, be it a video making, be it a photograph, we will let you know how you can be a part of a bigger solution which is being supported by none other than the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So please like the page, you will get a lot of information and you can register for the competition overall. Next slide, please. Okay. So this talks about, again, I think I'll just miss this out. This is about Terry's Youth Network, how we are working with national and international organizations. The purpose of showing you this is some of you could be already involved with some of these units. So when you're working with them, it is very easy for you to connect with Terry, and we'll see to it that how we could strengthen this association into a more formal setup. Next slide, please. Okay, ethical dimensions and youth involvement. So, like we very conveniently divide sustainable development into the three pillars. Similarly, when we're talking of topics like eco anxiety and all, we have to automatically be conscious of the ethical dimensions and how we can involve the youth in all the programs. So we can divide these dimensions into three main categories, which is the political, social, and environmental. Environmental is something that they are directly connected with. They can address it by changing their immediate lifestyle. So any act that they do now will automatically connect them to an environmental dimension of ethics. When they are looking at a social dimension, they are looking at a society. So for them to be involved with the social dimension of ethics is through the society that they live in. Here, this is actually a process of I, we, and us. So I is environment, we is social, and political, of course, is us. That is more or less influencing the policies. So we can, it is a bottom up approach wherein we make an immediate change in our own activity, which will ultimately automatically lead to a major change in the political dimension. So these are the issues that the youth can be concerned about. Next slide. Okay, this is, I wanted to share this quote which was recently made by Dr. Shankar in one of Terry's program. If we pay attention to the last paragraph, he has very rightly said that India needs to be more self-generating and self-sustaining and creating opportunities by giving more focus on employment generation, innovation, and digitization. He has captured the entire canvas. So if we keep these three main words, employment generation, innovation, and digitization, I see hope only in the youth of today. Because any idea, any activity that is channelized in these three major areas automatically looks at the youth. And a very important way of doing it, which he has said in earlier, is to give more importance to being local. So all our initiatives by all the CSOs and all is at a local level, which needs to be emphasized and brought forward at a national and global platform. Next slide, please. Okay, so talking about all this eco anxiety, ethical issues, and all, I have a very interesting news that I came across yesterday, and it says that it is the humanity is actually going on towards a right direction if we take charge of two immediate things, which is the population and our consumption level. Very, very subtly, if these two changes, that is population and consumption, is taken in control, we will definitely control our population of the world, and there will be an ecological glory. This is a very, very interesting article. You should read this. The citation is mentioned here. And this is again another way of putting forward positive messages to the youth. The article talks about apocalypse, it talks about the environment hazards, but the messaging is positive. It says by 2020, we would have controlled things and we would have moved towards a positive direction. So, this is what I wanted to highlight. The issues are all there. Next slide. Problems are there. We know all about it. But how we package it and present it to our youth is something which is very, very important, especially during current times when we see that there's a lot of negative news and a lot of eco anxious youth all around us. Next slide, please. I think that is the end of my talk, and we can have more discussion later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You have given a very brief and very solid this presentation, and very informative the presentation was. In fact, you cover all these segments, right, like how we can conserve our this environment, like water conservation. You said, say no to plastics, buying less, and also you talked about the role of youth, and also you talked about what Terry is doing in this environmental consciousness or environment. So we have, with this, I thank you for this, your nice presentation. We have some questions, but we have selected two very prominent questions. I guess one would be for uh, Kumar sir, and the second would be for Lin madam. So the first question is like, this is, what holistic approach can government adopt for protection and conservation of environment? So Kumar sir, can you elaborate on it?
I think from plan periods, every 5-year plan periods onwards, government has been taking a lot of initiatives for protection. Now we have the National Climate Change information center in every state. We have the National Climate Change Bureau, and things are being established. We have all the acts. Government has entered into treaties. Government has international treaties. We are part of all the conventions, international conventions, the UNEP, and then we are on board in all the biodiversity conservation. So internationally as well as nationally, government is well seized of the matter, and they are trying to bring in this to the schools also, because environmental education is now also part of the school curricula. And in fact, we have to look at and see how best students are involved through a marks mode. Even that is also being discussed, whether students can be given some amount of 10 marks or something for their environmental knowledge and things like that. So government at the state level and the government level, they are all seized of the climate change and other issues. And there are, in terms of acts, in terms of treaties, in terms of conventions, in terms of seminars, etc., the government is doing the best. Now it is also for us to join hands with the good programs that are happening, so that bigger visibility and bigger transformations take place.
Thank you, sir. Good answer. And one, this very, I guess it's very interesting question. The question is, at one hand, we have to make people employable, so industrialization is important. We also need house, shelter, college and hospital, so constructions are also required. So in such circumstances, the balance between ecosystem is very hard. Means in one side you need this, and the second, so how, what you think, what is the simple mechanism?
May I answer?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, very interesting, student, whoever has asked this. You know, whenever you are in doubt, whenever you have any issue that is of concern, thing that you can always keep in mind is look back into your roots. So issues were even there in the past, so that this is a area where your traditional knowledge, your own indigenous systems will come to your rescue. These days these are packaged in very different forms. We have resource efficiency. When we say resource efficiency, that is where when we create new structures, we create new buildings wherein you create minimal waste, you take into account energy efficiency. So you have to move towards development. We cannot go back to the caves, but it is very important to look back into your roots and see, was there a way that our ancestor did this better? And most of the times you will find an answer. These days you see like water conservation, bamboo, use of bamboos, then use of structures, then water management. All of them are taken in as a step forward from what it was in the past. So resource efficiency is an answer to this. You have to go a development way, but do it in a very, very efficient manner. So you will find an answer there.
Thank you. Thank you. With this, I guess you both would be with us till 5, because maybe if any questions comes, so
Yes.
you will be here to satisfy the question. So
Yes.
with this, before I request Parvati ma'am, who is the legend in the field of development, I have two only this announcement that two separate this formats are being shared. One is for certificate and one is for feedback. So you fill that format for certificate and feedback, and you give back to us. So this formats are being shared to you. And the second announcement, that most of the questions are being sent in chat box. So you are requested to send it in question answer box. So it will be easy for us to select the question and answer. So with this, I request Parvati ma'am, who is the moderator for the further session. As Udayji was appreciating a lot, he was Madam is the legend in the field of development. She has created so many SHG groups, so many organizations. So I guess we will also hear your voice, your some inputs. And with this, I request you to please moderate the next session. Parvati ma'am. Unmute yourself, ma'am.
Is it clear?
Yes, yes, very clear,
Okay.
very.
Distinguished panelists, dignitaries from Vishwa Yuva Kendra and Oyster International, participants from far and near. Without an elaborate introduction, I think we have to move on to the speaker directly because we are running short of time. Dr. Khalil Chava, the renowned educationist, environmentalist, thinker, and author, will be he is the executive director, State Council for Open and Lifelong Education, Kerala. It's all there. Dr. Choa has been awarded National Award for Education Environment in 2013. He is a member state level expert appraisal committee. He has also served as the chairman in the Board of Studies Botany, PG, Kannur University. He has also produced a short film titled The Life Line in Line Wetlands. So he will be speaking about conservation and management of mangrove ecosystem. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Parvati Madam. Respected participants, especially from Vishwa Yuva Kendra and Oyster International, and my dear speakers who have already spoke regarding different topics, Dr. Krishna Kumar, Dr. Liblin, and Dr. Ganesh. Let me talk about the ecosystem, mangrove and wetland ecosystem. For that purpose, let me go to my presentation here, document. Share screen. Okay.
Anandji, who is going to present? Muktaji or Anandji, you?
So Mr. Dr. Khalil will be directly running his presentation. I think Dr. Khalil,
share screen. Khalid sir, you got screen?
I think, sir, internet is not working. Khalid sir.
Khalid sir?
His internet is stuck, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay. I think now it is, you can see my presentation. No, not yet. Not yet. Now you still hang, I think. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. My topic is okay, on the role of CSOs and youth in environmental protection. So here I have the topic on this mangrove protection, mangrove wetland protection. All over the world, there is a tendency for the conservation of wetlands after the tsunami of 2004. So here you can see the children and the youth are involved in the protection activities. It is under the leadership of Oyster International. So here again, in different countries, you will find the youth is actually involved in mangrove afforestation program. So what is a mangrove? Why we are protecting mangroves? Why we want to conserve these wetlands and mangroves? Mangroves are actually a taxonomically diverse species of plants which are mentioned under the resolution 8 to 32 of Ramsar Convention. And where you will find the different special characteristics like viviparous germination, that is a reproductive adaptation, and formation of pneumatophores, that is a structural adaptation for breathing purpose, breathing roots, and also the salt excretion through the leaves. So this is a particular special type of plants. We cannot see such a type of plants elsewhere, only in the salt wetlands, salty wetlands. So there are many important things that we must know about the mangroves. What is the importance of mangroves? It is used for the nutrient supply to all the organisms. Directly or indirectly, most of our organisms are depending on these mangrove plants. It is a food for many species of fishes, crustaceans, and many which are living in the wetland region. It is a fodder for the cattle. The leaves of Soneraceae is considered to be a very good fodder for cattle. The timbers are available and the fuel wood is available. It is the nesting and breeding ground for the different types of birds, and nursery ground for fishes and also small crustaceans. Land builders, how this become a land builder? Land builder means these mangroves which are having different types of roots. There are strict roots, prop roots, cable roots, knee roots, etc. Different types of roots. All these roots are there on the coastal belt where mangroves are present, so that the sand will not go out. It conserves the land. Even after tsunami, when you examine the different regions, you can very well see that if mangroves are present in a particular area, particular coastal region, that region is saved without any destruction. One such an experiment, inquiry was done between two places in Tamil Nadu, that is Pichavaram and Velanganni. In Pichavaram, because of the presence of mangroves, still mangroves are very intact. So because of that, that land is saved. But in the case of Velanganni, as we have already destroyed all the wetland ecosystem, all the mangroves, so the tsunami hit very adversely and very harmfully in that area. So that is there. Then effluent treatment. The mangroves can treat the effluent. All the toxic compounds which come with the water, which wastewater, can be absorbed by the mangroves. So it can purify water, the purification. Then protection of coral reef. If the mangroves are there near the coral reef region, then coral reefs are actually protected. The coast is protected. Then wetland, it makes wetlands, more and more wetlands are formed because of it. And it is a habitat for aquaculture. If you want to make an aquaculture, you can use an area which is very near to the mangrove. And recreation is the next important thing, recreation. We cannot value how much we get out of a recreation. Recreation, it is not valuable actually, and educational. These areas are used for the educational purpose for the students to study the halophytic adaptation, to study the migration of birds, to study the different water plants, etc. So for scientific and educational study, this is a very important area. There are many different types of living organisms are found in this area, biodiversity rich. And aesthetic, that is also another thing, aesthetic. We get an aesthetic pleasure. If you go and experience the nature in a wetland region, really you get an aesthetic pleasure. Next is the medicine. There are different types of medicines that are available in a mangrove area. For example, Exicaria agallocha is a plant from which we get the exudates, or that is known as a sap, the white sap. That sap is actually used for the treatment of leprosy and other skin diseases. So the local physicians know about the medicinal value of different mangrove plants. There is another mangrove plant, namely this Cantalia cande, the leaf of which is used for diabetes, and Bruguera cylindrica, the leaves and fruits are used for the treatment of heart diseases, so to reduce the cholesterol. So such a type of medicinal plants are also met with in a mangrove ecosystem. So in the all over the world, mangroves are there in the coast, all over the world. The green, here the green shows the places where rich mangroves are present. In India, actually, it is very less. Only in when coming to on the coast of Bay of Bengal and in Arabian Sea, but the Bay of Bengal is having more mangrove ecosystem on the coastal belt than the Arabian Sea. So you can see all over the world like this, and the distribution of this ecosystem is found in actually in Indonesia. It is more. We find more percentage of global mangrove ecosystem in Indonesia, 22.6%. But in India, we have only 2.7%. So this is the latitudinal distribution. When you see in the tropical region, actually this is found only in tropical belt. So we have made some research on this mangrove forest, and we found that there are different mangrove plants which are having different characteristic features which are beneficial to human beings. The economic importance is very much high in all these cases. So this is Avicennia officinalis, used for boat making. The furniture is obtained. It is used for firewood. Tannin is available. It is a medicine for asthma. And the nematophores of Avicennia are found there. And there is if you go for the chemical examination, it is having alpha naphthofuran. And this is salt crystals are found on the leaves because of a special kind of gland present for the excretion of water from the plant to outside. So this is a gland for that salt gland. It excretes the salt with the water to outside. And the Rhizophora mucronata is another species of plant that is also having tannin, gum. It is used for boat making. The seeds are edible and the leaves are used for diabetes. That is viviparous germination in the case of Rhizophora mucronata. The oysters, which are found on the coastal region somewhere, are found the roots of Rhizophora as a best place for its growth. That is, oysters are grown on the roots of this Rhizophora plant. Another species is the apiculata, Rhizophora apiculata, which is used for making pulp and plywood, gum, tannin, color, wood, cattle feed, etc. are available from this Rhizophora. Aegisaurus corniculatum is another species which is used for, it is a medicine for heart disease. Honey is also obtained. Soneraceae is actually a good fodder for the cattle. It is also medicinal for diabetes. This is the Exicaria agallocha that I have told you earlier, used for leprosy and skin diseases. And it is found that some active component is there, which is maybe act as an anti-HIV activity. So the research is going on that side also. Now we want to have the COVID-19, we need to have an anti-COVID-19 activity. Some plants may be having it. So in due course, we will find out, even from mangroves. So Bruguera cylindrica is the other plant. Then leaves and viviparous seeds for diabetes, wood for furniture and boat making. This is Scandalia candle. The Scandalia candle actually is used as a cattle fodder, and the leaves are used for medicine for diabetes. Another one is Lumicera, then Acanthus silcifolius. This is a fern plant, that is Acrosticum aureum. It is an anti-termitic. Against the termite it acts. The rhizome is edible. This is the way by which the people of our area in Kannur, in Malabar area of Kerala, are getting prawns by their own by using a method known as a tappal. They go to the water, and with the help of some basket, they just search for the prawns under the water, and they will get it, and they will pick it up. So they are getting a good enough amount of prawns by that way. Another type of fishing, that is the local fishing methods are there. Here, this is the collection of fodder for cattle from mangrove area. And a lot of clams are there in this region. So these clams are collected and they are separated. The inner part and the outer shell are separated and are actually sold. So why mangroves are important? Mangroves are important because of many reasons. This is the only unique ecosystem, the living and non-living organisms that make this ecosystem more important. It is the system of relationship between these all organisms and the living and non-living things together. So they are essential in the first, that is the food chain. For the food chain, they are essential. They are halophytic. They are having exceptional adaptation. These are the important things that you must know. So, and also planktons are there in the region. The leaf detritus provides food for animals, such as worms, snails, mussels, oysters, shrimp, etc. Clams, mullet. And this mangrove ecosystem is also having the detritus that eating animals that are a source for food for carnivores such as crabs and fish. These in turn provide food for large fish, reptiles, and birds. There are a large number of birds in the mangrove ecosystem. They provide habitat for feeding, breeding, and nursery area for a wide variety of plants. During the winter season, in all the wetlands of our country, if you go in the early morning, you will find a good number of a flock of birds that are flying from one direction and coming to this wetland. They are the migratory birds. From where the migratory birds are coming? They are coming from the northern side, North Polar region, mainly from Alaska, Canada, or Siberia, or from the north of the Himalayan region, etc. All these birds are coming to the wetlands of our area in search of the wetlands only. If wetlands are there, not there, they cannot come. Because during the winter season, it is very hard for them to live in their native place. The native place there, North Polar region is the native place because they breed there. It is a resident of that area. Here they are the visitors, not the residents. So they visit our country in search of the wetlands where they get good food, small fishes, and the grains from grasses, etc. And every year, a particular type of birds come to a particular region only. That is the important, that is something wonderful thing. One bird which visit a place to this year will come next year also to the same place. So they are having some magnetic simulation by which they can find out, identify the region. So GPS is there in the brain itself. So by that way, they will come to our place. Sometimes new birds are coming here. So when you think of birds, let me talk about one or two important, very interesting features of some birds. In the wetland area, here we will find one bird, namely this Baia sparrow. About the Baia sparrow, the students, I think the most of the participants are students of degree and PG colleges. So they have to have an attitude of scientific thinking. For the scientific thinking, one important feature you must have is the good scientific attitude, that is observation power. You must observe everything all around. Everything you must observe. What is happening to our environment? What are the things which destroy our environment? How we can save our environment from those things? So we, the youth, this is for youth. The youth must come forward to have some solution for the problems that is happening to environment. So in that way, you can observe the things. In the observation, you will get some research work also. You can do some research work also, which is unknowingly you are doing a research. In that way, some nowadays it is known as citizen scientists. A term, citizens, anybody can become a scientist now, citizen scientist. You do not have to have a MSc degree or a MA degree. You do not have to have a PhD, nothing like that. So you can inquire things, you can observe things, you can have an idea of what is happening. Dr. Salim Ali, that is a very important birdman of India. He has done a very crucial experimentation with a plant, with a bird named Baia sparrow. He found that the Baia sparrow make the nest on the coconut trees or the palm, Palmyra palm, or some other plants. At the tip of the leaves, it to make the special type of nest. That nest is very special because it is very the architectural features are very much praiseworthy. That is very good one. And the male bird come and start making that nest. At that time, some female birds will come there, and one of the female bird will enter and inspect the nest. And if she found that it is not suitable for her, she will go away. And another bird may come, and that bird may think that this is good one, then she will sit inside. And she think that this nest and also the nest builder is she likes both nest and nest builder, and she's ready for marriage between them. So that is the first marriage. After marriage, both male and female will work hard to complete that nest in a beautiful way. That wonderful nest is having a entrance. Inside it, there is a room for laying eggs, and there are many such features. It is very, very hard also, very stable. And after laying egg, the female will incubate the egg inside the room, inside that nest. At that time, the male bird will go away from that side and build another nest in another tree far away, where also another female bird will come, and she likes the male, and there is marriage, the laying of egg, and again incubation. At that time, that male bird will go again to third tree, and that will be going on up to 4. So the 4 marriages will take place. After that, that male will go for a sedentary life. So such a type of interesting things are there on the wetlands. If you go and observe the wetlands, that is, this story I told you is not a mere story. It is a research result of a research work done by Dr. Salim. And you can also find out many such interesting things. So there are, in the wildlife of mangroves, there are different types of fishes, crustaceans, mollusks, etc. are found. And there are different types of birds, the crabs, etc. Different types of crabs are there. And many other wildlife you will see, find is that is mangrove bucky, periwinkle, crocodiles sometimes. So this is a very good habitat for such a type of all different type of organisms like insects, frogs, bats, snakes, and other creatures. Everyone can come to the mangrove area and live. So we are having, in India is having some very important in West Bengal. We are having a very good mangrove patch where you will find the Bengal tiger. Bengal tiger is also there. So it is a nursery ground for our crustaceans and feeding ground for all the fishes and other type of creatures also. And it is a productive ecosystem. That is a very important thing. Mangrove actually acts as a buffer against the high winds and eroding waves of storms. So it protects our coastal belt. And it traps the sediments and prevent them from building up further out to sea, which is damaging to other ecosystems like coral reefs and seagrasses. So it protects the coral reef also. And mangroves are amazing because they can filter pollutants, nitrates, phosphates, petroleum. Even the mangroves can absorb heavy metals like mercury, lead, etc., cadmium, etc. So in fisheries, so these are the things which we have to understand. But nowadays, what the man doing is, mangroves area, wetland area are considered to be a very not a productive area. So we are converting it, reclaiming it, and building high storied buildings in the mangrove area. So that it destroys our lands and the mangroves. So man is the culprit, is an intruder, is destroying everything. So now he is getting the result of that. And pollution is another thing. We are dumping all the pollutants in the mangrove area. So these are the things you must know. And what our youth can do is, youth can come forward to protect the this mangrove. The youth can come forward to protect the ecosystems, all the ecosystems. There are different type of ecosystems like evergreen forest, that is a forest ecosystem, deciduous forest ecosystem, and grassland ecosystem, and also the wetland ecosystem. Laterite ecosystem is there in the another. All these ecosystems are required for the benefit of human beings. So we must protect them. All the students and the youth must come forward. And as I have shown the first picture, you see, we have to be involved in afforestation program of mangroves, and we have to protect sacred groves also. Thank you. Let me conclude here. Thank you very much for inviting me for this lecture. Thank you.
That was a very informative and interesting session. Dr. Chauva has dwelled at length on the conservation and management of mangrove ecosystem. Thank you, Dr. Chauva. Your clear insight, scientific observation, and vast experience in the area made your amazing presentation unique. Thank you. Then we will move on to the next session by by Mr. Ganesh Vishwanathan, Environmental Health Safety Specialist, INMA solutions. Mr. Ganesh Vishwanathan, independent consultant in several areas like municipal, not seeing, it's not clear. Environmental audit, waste to energy, project management consultant services, postgraduate in public health engineering, College of Engineering, Ginti, Anna University. He has served in Tamil Nadu Water Supply and Drainage Board, Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board. He is also a member of State Environmental Impact Authority, Tamil Nadu. He is going to tell us something about a topic that is very much interesting to everyone, all of us. We are all looking for ways and means to manage solid waste and have not been able to arrive at a feasible solution so far. Mr. Ganesh Vishwanathan, the renowned environmentalist, health safety specialist, will be able to solve our questions, answer our questions, solve our problems, I believe. So, sir, you are most cordially invited to present.
PPT coming up? Is PPT?
So I think he's not on the panel. I think he's just logged off. So we are not able to see him on the panel.
Oh my God. What happened?
I think so. He's not on the. He's just got disconnected, and we are not able to see him on the panel.
Now,
So
now
I think,
he is. Now
yeah,
he is on.
now he's on.
Yes.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think now he's back. I think. Ganeshanji, if you can just unmute yourself and switch on your video.
May I
Sir,
continue?
you are visible.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can. You start your.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon to thank the Vishwa Yoga Kendra and Kushka to extend an opportunity for me to share my experience in the field of solid waste management among the audience. To begin with, see in India, the Environmental Protection Act has been legislated to begin with the Water Act in 1974 and the Air Act in 1981, and subsequently in 2000, the Act has been legislated for the solid waste management, especially for the municipal solid waste management. Again, the Act has been revised in 2016. So in between 2000 and 2010, nothing has happened. Other Supreme Court, some plans are established in India. May I move to this? Please. May
Yeah, we are just switching. We are just putting on your page. Yeah,
present my
PPT.
slides?
Yeah, we are just switching it on. Sir, I think your video is hanging. If you can just switch off your video and keep your audio on, I think that will be, maybe that might also help in not big. Yeah.
Now it is all right?
Yeah, now it's fine, sir.
Yeah. See, there are, we see a number of epidemics in India. Epidemics may be due to either water or air or solid waste. In 1994, the major for the solid waste happened in Gujarat, plugged to the this thing of plastic waste and all. And looking into the problems, see, we can see solutions for the water if it is contaminated. We can restrict the activity. If it is a air, similarly, eating or working, solid waste will likely to generate, likely to increase with this introduction. My coverage in this presentation is the present status, issues, feasible alternatives, and administrative reform required for successful implementation. Hello?
Audio problem.
Next slide, please. Please move the slide. Yeah, fine. See, so far, as far as solid waste management is concerned, we hardly have a better waste management system in it. India, which is water, air and soil waste are shelter for pollutants, especially the solid, where the pollutants such as contaminations, virus and bacteria, which is a main center for the solid waste, where it grows and multiplies, resulting in all kind of problems, including epidemics. So solutions are feasible for reduce and control is feasible in air and water, and pollution, population and needs of the community are decides the quantum of solid waste generation, as I have already explained. See, collection, treatment and disposal is toughest task, needs large capital investment and land. As far as solid waste concerned, it is something a huge capital investment and operating cost is required. And fortunately or unfortunately, this is vested with the local bodies who do not have a adequate revenue for the management of solid waste management. Their only revenue is from the property tax. Again, if even the government subsidized to some extent, they have very little manpower or technical background to operate and maintain it. These are all certain major issues which are responsible for the poor advancement in the solid waste management in India. Next slide, please. See, about 550 lakh tons of wastage generated per day in India for a population of 130 crores. And per capita waste generation is between 250 to 500 grams in India. We should be one way happy, because in developed countries, the per capita generation is 10 times more, or 2.5 kg per capita, because of our lifestyle, and we reuse and recycle to some extent, right from the paper and other things. we could able to restrict our per capita waste generation in spite of so much of population. But source segregation, which is not happening, which is a big threat for the waste management. Door-to-door collection, which they are local body supposed to do, it happens only 50% or less. Again, street sweeping, partially done in commercial area, as per the norms, they will have to street sweep every day, which is not happening in India due to various reasons. Next slide. See, out of these 550 lakh tons, 330 lakh tons are biodegradable waste. See, as of now, there are only 95 compost plant in India. Capacity, it's installed capacity 23.5 lakh tons, whereas the operating capacity is only 2.8 lakh tons only, which is less than 1% of the total waste generated. So we are still in the very initial stage of the solid waste management. There are some plants, biomethanation plant and waste energy plant. This only they are doing it at an experimental stage, not in the big way they are producing power and all. And there are sanitary landfills, 13 numbers in India. Again, the sanitary unit generates CO2 emissions about 7,100 tons per day, which is an alarming quantity. See, dumped on land and fire, that is happening in all over India. High gaseous pollutants, which are again responsible for the poor visibility, bad odor, smoke, etc. We will have to go forward to find solutions for this. This is something very extreme task. Fortunately, now to Swachh Bharat, about 62,000 crores has been earmarked for the sanitation and respective areas. We will see what will happen in the coming years. Next slide. Say you will put the physical composition. It is about 40 to 60% biodegradable, and whereas in the rural areas it's only 20 to 25% of the biodegradable waste are generated. The very reason in city we are throwing more food and eating very small. That is the problem. The plastic, rubber, fabric, etc. are about 20 to 30%. The e-waste is 2%, biomedical waste is 3 to 5%. So we are not so far addressing the issues on biomedical waste generated from the home. So there are biomedical waste rules which are being enforced for the collection, treatment, disposal from the hospitals, clinics, and commercial facilities only. Whereas the biomedical waste generated from our each home is being not addressed so far. Okay, next slide. Say plastics is a major problem, and some extent that can be downcycled, but you cannot compromise on plastics. We need plastics because it is cheaper and waterproof. We cannot get away from the plastics because plastic has done a lot of revolution in India. We should accept because it is something a major part in the water supply. See, the water supply extended to the all rural areas only because of the PVC pipes. If the PVC pipes or asbestos pipe was not there, we would have not been able to provide the water supply to the rural community. It's something a major revolution in water supply in automobiles, where the weight of the automobile has been brought down, thereby fuel consumption has been considerably reduced. Again, in the area of electrical, electronic, fabric, and packaging, the plastic have a very big role, but we have to live with the plastics, but we cannot get away from the plastic. That is my observation. See, though the steel is another alternative in some areas for the plastics, again, that also results in the exploitation of natural resources and resulting more emissions. When you go for steel plant, that is again more emissions. So between the steel and plastic, we have to compromise and seek some reasonable decisions. So the need is best management system rather than the banning on plastics. Banning on plastics, in my observation, hardly given the not a desired result so far. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. The major issue in the solid waste management is a source segregation. We are speaking for the decades together, biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste. You speak at the source itself. There are so much of awareness, anything created, that nothing has happened so far. Because hardly we have one dustbin in home, and rarely in houses in a higher income they have two dustbins. But if thing is put up in one dustbin, what happens? All the reusable and the recyclable waste are getting soiled. So that is being happened. So we are just leaving our home only the mixed waste to the roadside bins, so that the entire reuse and recyclable quality of the plastics, fabrics, and paper is lost. That is the major issue so far. And will it happen in the coming years? I am not very sure. Should it happen? My observation is it need not happen to the 100% capacity. Next.
So I think Mr. Ganeshan is not on the panel list. I think he is having some network issues. Yeah, I think he's joined back. Sir, if you can unmute yourself. Ganeshan, sir.
Yeah. Hearing now? Are you hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go back to previous slide.
Speed up.
Go back. Yeah, there is some disturbance in the connectivity. Go back to the previous slide.
Still network problem.
Please back to previous slide.
Yes, sir, we have come back to the previous slide, sir.
So application is a
Audio.
Ganeshan, your audio is breaking.
No internet
Sir, maybe if you can, sir, take this, Krishna Kumar sir, if you can just continue with his session because it's breaking a lot. So if you can just take that forward from where Mr. Ganeshan has left, because his connection is coming and going, sir.
Because it's his presentation, his views may be totally different from mine, you know.
I am hearing your voice, sir.
Oh, yeah, sir. Sir, but we are not able to hear you.
Hear you, it's getting cut often. Go ahead, Mr. Ganeshan, please.
Yes.
The next slide, please.
Yeah.
Next slide. Next slide.
Integrating solid waste management, that is the one that is being getting projected.
Yeah, next slide. Move to next slide.
Okay.
Move. Yeah. Again, next slide. Yeah. This is an area where civil society and youth have a big role in achieving this. Say, from the high low income group population to high income group, to begin with, we have to make an attempt to achieve the source segregation. You leave the slum and low income group where it is something very difficult in the present living conditions. If the source segregation is achieved to some extent, we have achieved something on recovered and all the reuse and recyclable materials. Otherwise, which are all being dumped and burned in the dumping yard. So to create awareness among the middle income group, high income group, this kind of awareness is more required, and where the CSOs and the youth have a very big role to play in this area. This is one thing, total preventing the better waste management process. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, when we are talking about the composting and the entire biodegradable waste has to be composted, and other ways, only the option so far is the landfill. Say, for your kind information, we need about 8.4 lakh hectares of land is required for 330 lakh tons of waste to go for a composting. Again, for the landfill, made to available, go for the entire composting and landfill, and this area requirement likely to increase every year. Once you go for a landfill, you cannot get back the land for any other purpose. That is only just like a burial ground. You have to forget the piece of land. This is something an alarming problem in the landfill. So we have to get away from the landfill as far as possible. Okay, go back. Next slide, please. Yeah, there are administrative issues. See, so far the solid waste management is vested with the local bodies. There depends on the state support on capital and operative cost. Say, as far as as I already said, is the only remedy for the local bodies, and they could not able after that they spend it on procuring land.
Much of disturbance.
Hello?
Yeah, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. See, another environmental impacts. See, environmental acceptable lands are not available within the boundary of the local body. That is a problem. Where the urbanization are more and seeking a land, adequate land and acceptable land is totally ruled out. So they move to their neighboring. When they do go neighboring area, they are not accepting such facility, and there is find not a solution for this kind of activity. Again, mobilization of funds, because property tax is the only revenue, and they are good not able to mobilize adequate funds by commercializing the activity because of the political restrictions. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Yeah, you can go ahead. So Ganeshan, I think
within these constraints, we need to think of the alternatives for the processing and disposal. Are you here?
Krishna Kumar sir, I think we are finding very much difficulty in the presentation.
Yeah, I think correct. Yeah. Okay. The best thing is that he has suggested alternatives. So Ganeshan, you have to hold your mic close to your mouth, and you need not shake also. And then it's, you're using a what? A ear mic or something? What is it that you're using? Kindly keep the mic close. And I suggest that don't shake also. Just to stand in there. The previous 1 minute was good.
Sir, I think a network problem, I think so. Low connectivity.
I am not shaking anything. I am only the.
Sir, please speak. You can speak now, I think.
Okay. See, as alternatives, see, I am suggesting home composting in rural areas where the backyard is available. See, which will reduce the burden for the local body. Yeah, 3 to 4 feet diameter pit, which will serve for 2 to 3 years. Remaining waste, where all the reuse receivables can be disposed to the waste vendors. The only problem is the materials such as shoes, chappals, rubber, resin, and foamy material, which largely have any reusable value. That has to be under issue, but which has to be addressed through integrating with the urban solutions. So, waste energy plant is another option for which this all these rubber shoes and all is raw material, including plastics, soiled fabrics, cloths, etc. And this should happen in at least near future. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Say home in rural areas, a population of less than 10,000, requirement a pit of 1 meter by 1 meter by 2 meter depth backyard. You dispose all food waste, garden waste, to some extent the biomedical waste also to begin with. The excavated soil can be used for daily cover. The pit will serve 2 to 3 years for a family. Dispose the stabilized waste for manure. Dispose the other waste through the waste vendor. The remaining waste, which I already told that needs some solution. That solution can be addressed only through integrating the urban waste. We will see later. Next slide, please. Yeah. See, for a urban area and semi-urban area, what we can go for the common composting or biomethanation plant where the lands are available. Larger the facility, instead of leaving to the local. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. See, there are two options I have just suggested. Option one is the independent common composting or biomethanation for the biodegradable waste, and regional waste to energy plant for dry waste. Option two is the waste to energy plant with mixed waste. Say, yeah, corporation like Chennai or Delhi or Mumbai, I do not see any solution going for a composting under. Because of the available land, other things. Only option in the rural areas where you can find lands, you can go for the composting. The possible extent. Okay. So when you go for a waste energy plant, the entire waste management has to be dealt as a state, in spite of splitting into the local body. Unless you take it as a whole in a state, it is very difficult to find the solutions. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
You
you
may go
just
ahead.
bring back the slides, sir. I'm not seeing the slides, sir.
Make it faster. Speed up.
Sir, if you may just speed up as well.
Yeah, only few slides are remaining. Only 2 or 3 slides are remaining.
So you may go ahead, please.
But the slides are not.
So we have
Okay,
just, yeah. So please go ahead, please.
Okay. See, with the present scenario, what the government has to do is withdraw the waste management, solid waste management from the local bodies. Propose a state authority. State authority with provision. Any waste can be handled, collected, treated, disposed anywhere in India or anywhere within state. Okay, so that we can go for a better and commercial facility put up at the anywhere in any part of the state. Say there is a full scope that government don't need to spend even a pay for the solid waste management facility. Okay, so just like electricity board, water supply can establish an authority, and even the capital invest can be recovered through the high income group and from the commercial establishment through the O&M and other things. So there is a big scope for the solid waste management if the will, political will, and so much money don't need to be spent by the government for a solid waste management, and certain similar steps are taken in future, at least within coming years. Some reasonable solution we can see, and the entire facility shall be pay and use policy, polluter pay principle, and leaving the slums, and the entire system shall be under pay and use principle. This is something very possible, but some good administrative reforms and with establishment of state authority will really yield good results in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Parvati ma'am, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself, Parvati ma'am. Parvati ma'am, kindly unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ganesh Vishwanathan. It was a well-made presentation. The only thing is the speaker was invisible. But even then, everything was well-planned, logically arranged. It had a beginning, middle, and end. And thank you very much for the same. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Then
Thank you very much.
we will move on to is there time for question and answer session?
Yeah, ma'am, we can, I think, we can take 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah. So, if anyone wants to put some questions.
And we already have a question there.
Yeah.
I think if I can just
yes,
state the question.
Yes,
yeah.
You state.
Yeah, among the waste management, e-waste management should be focused as it is going to cause concern to many environmental issues. Please throw some light on this.
For Ganeshan, question is for Ganesh.
Yeah, Mr. Ganesh.
Say, as far as e-waste concerned, we made some good move. Still, lot of things to be happened, because see, large quantity of e-waste are generated from the IT industries. Similarly, even though it is small, from the house to house, from the toys, electrical appliances, electronics, that also generate a lot of e-waste. And there are recovery and recycle plants are established in India, but still it is not adequate and a long way to go. And there are certain provisions made in the solid waste management rules that they have to collect back. For example, all the hardware shall be collected by the manufacturers. It is a responsibility has been highlighted in the solid waste management rules. Still, in our living conditions, it will take years to achieve the goal. In the developed countries, and each house there are 6 bins. In India, there are no bins or only 1 bin. Say, I have been in a project in Sharjah for the waste energy plant. Each home should have a 6 bin, 1 for food waste, 1 for paper, 1 for plastic, 1 for e-waste, 1 for biomedical waste. If such things happen in India, things will happen in the right direction. I don't think so. It will take years. That is why the present only solution is waste to energy for with the mixed waste. Wherever possible, you go for the composting in a little way, or because the large quantity of land is located for the composting and all. That is the problem.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. So we have one more question, and this I think is goes to Dr. Khalil. That what is the role that the youth in the college, can do in mangrove, in mangrove conservation? What is the role of the youth in college in mangrove conservation? Dr. Khalil?
Yes. Yes. It is a good question. So youth in colleges actually, they are if they are a botany student, they are botany students. They definitely they must do something for conserving their own mangroves, because the mangroves are dwindling nowadays. Actually, in some areas it is very much decreased. So we must conserve it. The college students come together, as in the case of Oyster International. They are having youth forum. I think Vishwa Yuva Kendra is also having a group of students. And among them, there are college students. These college students must group together for the purpose of conservation. How they can conserve? Because they must make aware of the people that these are the importance of mangroves. They know, they are studying about mangroves. So those students, they can come to the coastal region. They may contact with those persons, those people on that area, stakeholders are there. And they should convey what is the importance of, what are the importances of mangroves. And also, there are CRZ rules. They must make the people aware of the CRZ rules. Coastal regulatory zone management is a very important thing for that. If somebody cut the mangroves, that is really, it is punishable offense. Punishable offense. So, and also for their betterment, for their sustenance, mangrove should be there in the coastal belt. So the first thing is that the awareness program. The students can do the awareness program. Second thing, they have to make wherever necessary, they have to patch up the mangroves where mangroves are destroyed by afforestation program. And also they can find out new places where mangroves can be planted. So OISCA is having such programs. OISCA International has made a very good for in 1998 in Kannur district, OISCA International, with the help of youth forum, the students from the colleges, they came together and they planted a large area. About 10,000 saplings have been planted on that day, on that season. And still it is remaining there. More than 80% survival of those plants are there. So if those students, whenever they go through the Valavattanam bridge, when they see this, they will have the self-esteem that they have made it. Because of them only, these large area of mangroves are still there. So such type of activities can be done by the college students.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I think the students have really must have got a clear indication now. So can we have some final words and comments from Dr. Krishna Kumar and Dr. Livleen? I think both of them, I think, have been there, I think, since the beginning. Any final comments, Krishna Kumar, sir? Any final comments, Livleen, ma'am?
Yeah, this both the speakers, if you ask me, Dr. Khalil Chauha and Mr. Ganeshan, their topics were very important. We know how important mangroves are. All along the coastal systems of India, we have a huge coastline. And if mangroves can, be built all across, it's going to be a wonderful bioshield. And it is not only going to be a bioshield for life sustenance, it will also be for life security, livelihood security. See the slides which showed the fishermen catching oysters, barnacles, and clams. All those are showing livelihood support. So that's very important. Solid waste management is always and even today continues to be a very big problem. I think Mr. Ganeshan rightly highlighted students have to evince interest and see this collection at source has been something that we've been talking for decades. This has to come through self-discipline. And this, I think any improvement program in the country, that's why now we have this Atmanirbhar and then all our good programs where, people start thinking that I am the source and I am the problem solver. If these two things come into their mind, I am the creator and I am the solver. And if that is there, I think our country comes to a very better position. It is happening. We see very good thing. The youth particularly are very dynamic, much more than what during our age. And therefore, there seems to be prosperity and a lot of security, and future seems to be blissful and good. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Livleen, ma'am, would you like to put in some final words?
Well, nothing after Dr. Krishna sir. He's actually said everything. Like if we are the creator, we are the solution provider, everything can be done. But yes, I want to put in a very positive word for OISCA and Vishwa Yuva Kendra for organizing this program, because these are channels which keep our youth focused. So the energy is there with them, they are there with solutions, but we need an anchor, and that anchor is provided by such valuable organizations, and we should encourage such networks to even work towards creating a mega movement. So we have to communicate to youth that they are not alone and there are people behind them who will take them forward in the journey. So please carry on with the work, and whatever help you need from us, let us know. We'll be more than happy to help all the students. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think TERI is a specialist organization working in environment, so we will surely look forward to your support. And so, just before we go to the vote of thanks, I would just want to share. I think we have had really good number of participants on Zoom, almost around 270 participants on Zoom, and many hundreds of students and CSOs on our Facebook and YouTube live as well. So now we can have the vote of thanks from Sri Arvind Bapuji. Yeah.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Rajat. Now we are just concluding the wonderful webinar jointly conducted by OISCA and Vishwa Yuva Kendra. I understand this webinar was very informative and fruitful one. Many youth from different parts of India actively participated. We are very much thankful to Vishwa Yuva Kendra for the arrangements of this webinar. Especially our special thanks to Chief Controller and very dynamic Mr. Uday Shankar Singh Ji and Program Officer Rajat Thomas, Dr. Lily, Mr. Ajit Kumar Rai, and all VYK team. I'm also glad to extend our gratitude to Dr. Krishna Kumar, Mr. Ganeshan, Dr. Khalil Chava, and all participants. So I think this was a very memorable webinar for us. Once again, thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we thank everybody and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Vijay
Krishna
ji,
Kumar, sir.
Ajit sir,
Thank you, Arvind Babu,
Rajat.
sir.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.